Have you ever, like, listened to an English learner who uses just absolutely perfect grammar, but something still sounds just a bit off?
Oh, definitely. It happens all the time.
Right. Like, you are listening to them, and technically they are doing everything completely right according to the rule book. Their verb tenses are flawless.
Yeah, and their vocabulary is incredibly advanced.
Exactly. But as they speak, your brain registers this tiny, almost imperceptible speed bump. You know exactly what they mean, but you also know that a native speaker would never, ever phrase it quite like that.
Right. It is a very specific kind of linguistic uncanny valley. You are hearing the language, but the texture of it is slightly altered.
Yes, the texture.
It is the difference between reading a textbook and hearing a living, breathing conversation on the street.
Well, that secret sauce of sounding natural is exactly what we are decoding today. We've got our hands on an educational framework called Beyond the Textbook, Mastering Natural English Collocations.
Such a great resource.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to isolate the exact formula native speakers use without even realizing it. You know, we are moving way beyond dictionary definitions and looking at how these words actually behave out in the wild.
Because fluent English doesn't actually rely on individual words strung together in real time. It relies heavily on very specific verb and noun combinations. Native speakers do not build sentences word by word. They use these pre-packaged blocks of meaning called collocations.
Okay, let's unpack this because I was thinking about this and it is kind of like cooking. You know, learning individual vocabulary words is like buying random ingredients at the grocery store.
I like that analogy.
Right, so you have flour, you have sugar, you have eggs, but collocations are the recipe. You can't just throw a handful of flour and a raw egg into a bowl, stir it with your finger, and expect a good meal.
No, you definitely cannot.
You have to know exactly which ingredients bond together and in what specific way to actually make a cake.
And if you just translate word for word from your native language, you are essentially throwing those random ingredients into the pan.
Yeah.
You might technically be using English words, but the dish is going to taste very strange to a native palate. And, you know, we see this happen constantly with some of the most common action verbs in the English language.
So true. Let's look at the classic traps learners fall into when they miss these pairings. You frequently hear learners say things like, I did a mistake, or I need to make my homework.
Yeah, and to a native speaker, do a mistake just sounds jarring.
It really does.
It disrupts the flow of the conversation, even though the intended meaning is perfectly clear to everyone listening.
Wait, I have to push back on the logic of English here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If I am sitting at my desk and I'm literally creating an assignment from scratch, I'm writing an essay, solving math equations, why is make homework wrong?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, the dictionary says make means to create or produce something. I am producing my homework, so why on earth do I have to do it?
See, that perfectly illustrates the trap of direct translation. You are trying to apply strict mathematical logic to a system that is fundamentally cultural.
Oh, interesting.
Right, because collocations aren't always strictly logical. They are established cultural patterns. In the English linguistic mindset, homework is viewed as an ongoing task or a duty.
Okay.
And we use the verb do for tasks, activities, and obligations. A mistake, conversely, is viewed as something you physically produce or create out of nothing,
Oh, wow.
which is exactly why we make a mistake.
Mm.
What's fascinating here is how the source emphasizes that collocations must be learned through recognizing these cultural patterns, not by translating from a native language.
So doing is about the process of an obligation, and making is about the final created product,
Exactly.
even if that product is a terrible error.
Yeah, unfortunately. You simply cannot logic your way into collocations by translating. I mean, many Romance languages use the exact same verb for both do and make.
Oh, right, like hacer in Spanish.
Precisely. A speaker coming from that background will constantly stumble if they rely on translation. These combinations have to be absorbed through recognizing patterns rather than agonizing over dictionary definitions.
So it is less about what the word means in a vacuum and more about who its friends are. Like mistake likes to hang out with make, and homework prefers the company of do.
That is a great way to put it. Knowing which verbs pair with which nouns is the quickest way to cross that uncanny valley and sound genuinely natural.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Once you understand that collocations are the building blocks, you start seeing them operating everywhere.
Oh, absolutely everywhere.
If we look at a normal workday, everything is driven by a handful of high-frequency action verbs. Specifically, make, take, get, and do.
Yeah, those four are the absolute engines of workplace conversation. You can barely get through a morning meeting without relying on them.
Totally. Think about the career ladder. You don't acquire a job, you just get a job.
Right, and once you're there, you're expected to make decisions about your projects.
And if I mess up, I don't produce an error, I make a mistake.
And then, of course, your boss expects you to take responsibility.
Right?
And after a stressful morning of trying to get better at your role, you desperately need to take a break.
So true.
Because ultimately, you are just there to do business. Notice how smoothly those phrases sequence together.
Yeah, it sounds completely natural.
If we look closely at the verbs themselves, we can see how they subtly color the meaning of the nouns they're attached to. Look at do business versus make a decision.
Oh, yeah. There is a totally different energy to those two phrases.
How do you mean?
Well, doing business feels like this continuous rolling process. It is ongoing, but making a decision feels like a sharp, isolated event.
Yes.
Like you strike the gavel, the decision is made, and it exists now as a finished product.
That aligns perfectly with do representing a task or activity and make representing creation. You are executing the activity of business, but you are creating a discrete decision.
That makes so much sense. Let's dig into we take a break and we take responsibility. Why are we taking these things? It feels almost, I don't know, aggressive.
It kind of is. Take implies a conscious act of acquiring something or assuming a burden.
Okay.
In modern work culture, rest isn't just passively given to you. You have to actively claim that rest for yourself. When you take a break, you are physically pulling that time away from your employer.
You are snatching your 15 minutes back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you take responsibility, it is almost physical too. You are picking up the weight of that responsibility and carrying it. You aren't just acknowledging a failure, you are taking ownership of the consequences.
Wow. It makes perfect sense when you look at it through that lens. And then there is get. We get a job, we get better. Get feels almost passive to me, which is weird because job hunting is exhausting.
Oh, it is the worst.
But we don't say capture a job, we just get it.
Well, get is arguably the most flexible verb in English. It acts as the verb of transformation.
Transformation.
Yeah, it denotes a change in state. You transition from not having a job to having one. You transition from being unskilled to getting better. Native speakers lean on it heavily because it covers almost any shift in circumstance without requiring a more complex, specific verb.
It really is the duct tape of the English language.
It really is.
If I hear someone say, I must obtain a new employment position, I immediately know they are not a native speaker or they are reading from a legal document. A native speaker just says, I need to get a job.
Right. Natural English is rarely the most complex English. It is usually just mastery of these simple, high-frequency verbs paired with the correct nouns.
The beauty of these verbs is how adaptable they are to different contexts while maintaining that core flavor of meaning.
Exactly.
You know, it is fascinating that we view the workplace through this transactional lens of making, doing, and taking. But what really surprised me in the source material is that we use this exact same transactional logic when we go home to our personal lives.
Oh, definitely.
We use a second set of crucial verbs to navigate social scenarios. Save, pay, come, and have.
These four verbs are incredibly revealing because they show us how English speakers conceptualize the world around them, even outside of the office.
Yeah, like we save time and we save money, we pay attention and we pay the bill, we come prepared and come back and we have a meeting or have a problem.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these specific micro-explanations are exactly what a learner needs to internalize.
Right.
Let's look at have a problem. In many languages, if you are experiencing difficulties, you use a verb that translates closer to I am troubled or I am experiencing difficulty.
Which is a state of being.
Exactly. It's an internal state.
It is something happening to you like a dark cloud hanging over your head.
But in English, you have a problem. You possess it.
Right.
The English language takes this abstract negative experience and turns it into a concrete object that you hold in your hands.
That is such a subtle but massive difference.
By saying, I have a problem, it softens the emotional blow. You are not fundamentally a troubled person. You merely possess an object called a problem.
And because it is an object you possess, you can manage it, you can solve it, you can hand it to someone else. It gives you a sense of agency over the difficulty.
It completely shifts the psychological weight of the issue. You control the problem. The problem does not control you.
Man, that is deep. Let me throw another one at you that always felt bizarre, especially when trying to explain it to someone learning the language.
Sure.
The verb pay.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, we pay the bill at a restaurant, we pull out our wallets, we hand over physical money. But why do we pay attention? I am not handing over cash to listen to someone speak. Are we literally treating our focus as a currency?
We absolutely are. English, perhaps more than many other languages, is deeply rooted in the language of commerce. We view our cognitive focus, our attention, as a finite, valuable resource.
So it's basically a transaction.
Yes, it costs you mental energy to listen to someone. Therefore, you must pay it.
Which perfectly explains saved time, too. We are hoarding our minutes like pennies in a jar.
Exactly. Time is money, as they say. You can save time, you can spend time, you can waste time, you can even borrow time.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about spending or wasting time.
The collocations we use reveal that the culture views time and attention as commodities that must be budgeted. If a learner just memorizes pay attention, they are learning by rote.
Right.
But if they understand that in English, attention is a currency, the collocation makes intuitive sense.
It is almost like downloading the cultural operating system, not just the vocabulary. You start seeing the underlying code.
That is exactly what it is.
And what about come? We say come prepared or come back. This one feels less transactional and more spatial.
It is. Come implies movement toward the speaker or toward a focal point. When we say come prepared, we are implying a journey.
A journey?
Yeah, you are not just magically ready. You have traveled from a state of unreadiness, and you are arriving at this event, carrying your preparation with you.
It paints a very vivid picture. You aren't just existing in a vacuum. You are actively navigating through time and space with your problems in your pocket and your attention in your wallet.
Exactly. It's a very active, physical way to conceptualize the world.
So what does this all mean? We have the words, we have the philosophy behind the words. Knowing the collocations conceptually is a huge part of the battle. But the other half is how these phrases physically sound when spoken aloud.
Right. The execution.
It is not just the right vocabulary, it is the delivery.
Yeah, and the native speaker tips and speaking practice sections introduce the concept of shadowing style practice and the importance of natural pauses.
Shadowing is so useful.
It really is.
Yeah.
For advanced learners who already know the mechanics of shadowing, the goal here isn't just general pronunciation, it's specifically targeting these collocations.
I always like to visualize shadowing like learning a song.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like if you want to learn how to sing your favorite song, you don't sit in silence analyzing the sheet music and the time signature. You turn the radio on, you play the song, and you sing along with the artist.
Right.
You mimic their breath, you match their pitch, you catch the exact rhythm and stress of their voice.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Shadowing is about matching that inherent musicality.
But why is it so critical for collocations specifically? Why can't I just read pay attention off a flashcard?
Well, when you learn collocations as patterns, your rhythm naturally improves. A learner who reads word by word will say, I need to pay attention.
Yeah, very choppy.
They're treating each word as an island. They insert tiny pauses between every single word.
Which immediately flags them as a non-native speaker. No matter how perfect the grammar is, it sounds completely mechanical.
Exactly. A native speaker does not say pay attention. They say pay attention. It becomes one fluid phonetic chunk. Right. The stress usually lands on the noun, so it sounds like pay attention. When you practice shadowing these specific phrases, you train your motor pathways to link these words together physically, not just intellectually.
So if you are practicing the phrase take a break, you shouldn't practice the word take, then the word a, then the word break. You just practice take a break.
Yes.
It is one giant, compound super word.
The fluency isn't in knowing more words. It is in knowing how the words you already have melt together.
I love that, melting together.
You stop building sentences out of individual words, and you start speaking in these fluid chunks, which instantly elevates the natural rhythm of your speech.
This has been quite the paradigm shift, honestly. Looking back at the ground we've covered today, we started with the idea that speaking natural English isn't really about having a flawless grammatical rule book in your head.
At all.
And it certainly isn't about avoiding grammar mistakes.
It is about mastering the specific pairings of what we might call the big 8 verbs. Make, take, get, do, save, pay, come, and have.
And realizing that these verbs carry heavy cultural weight. We make a mistake because we created it out of thin air. We do business because it is an ongoing task.
We take a break to claim our time back from our employers.
We treat our problems as objects we have, and we treat our attention as literal money we pay.
And finally, we have to physically practice gluing these words together through shadowing so that they roll off the tongue as single, unified concepts
Yeah.
rather than isolated dictionary entries.
It leaves us with a really practical call to action straight from the source. Start noticing these patterns and your English will sound much more natural.
It's great advice.
It really is. Once you know what a collocation is, you start hearing them everywhere. Every movie, every podcast, every conversation is just a string of these pre-packaged verb-noun combinations.
This raises an important question, though.
Oh, I love where this is going. What is the question?
Well, if native speakers are constantly using these pre-packaged verb-noun collocations without even thinking about them, if our language is essentially built on these habitual chunks of meaning, how much of our daily conversation is actually original thought?
Oh, wow. That is a wild thing to consider.
Right. Are we carefully constructing our sentences to reflect our deep inner truths? Or are our brains simply hitting autocomplete over and over again?
Autocomplete, that's terrifyingly accurate.
Are we actually building bespoke sentences, or are we just snapping together conversational Lego blocks that culture handed to us long before we were born?
Well, that is going to keep me up at night. Am I speaking the language or is the language speaking me? The
Exactly.
next time you hear someone speak with absolutely perfect textbook grammar, but it sounds just a little bit off, maybe don't judge them. Maybe they are the only ones actually building their sentences from scratch, while the rest of us are just blindly following the recipe. Let that marinate as you go about your day.